Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of BCS Community Connections. Today on the podcast, I've been blessed to have Miss Jennifer Stark, and Jennifer is here representing Stark Farms today. And if you've never heard of Stark Farms, you're going to get an opportunity to hear about her business today and what she's doing out at her place between here and closer to Hearne. And we're going to talk about that location here towards the end of the podcast. But we wanted to bring her on today to talk about Stark Farms and talk about what it is that she does out there and services and things that she's got going on. So you have a horse farm that's out there that we want to talk about. So, but before we get into that, wanted to kind of have you tell everybody a little bit about your background, where you grew up, what brought you here to College Station, how long you've been here, and then we'll go off into your business a little bit.
All right. So I'm originally from Colorado. My mother actually moved us to Las Vegas when I was 9 years old. Mm-hmm. So I lived there for 17 years, was raised by a single parent, and I ended up marrying a man, and we moved to Texas. Okay. That was 15 years ago, so his family was from here. And I just have been here ever since. I absolutely love Texas. Las Vegas is definitely not a place to raise your kids. So, and I, have 3 boys. So, Texas was definitely a good culture shock for sure.
Probably more in line with who you were at the core, I guess. Like when we're going to talk about your business here a little bit, I'm curious if Texas kind of matches up when people start thinking about horses and things like that. That's usually the first thing they kind of think about is Texas Cowboys and things like that. So you own Stark Farms, and Stark Farms came to be how? Like when did that come into existence?
So when I moved to Bryan, Texas, and I actually moved to the house that I'm in now. I've been here for 15 years, so we haven't moved around. So I went through a divorce, 7 years ago, and that's when Stark Farms became. I had been riding and training before that, and I had a business with my ex-husband. And so I switched the name and, how I do things, and I just kind of made it my own. Mm-hmm. So, I specialize in beginner horsemanship. I used to do a lot of training, starting horses, getting ready for trail. And, I've completely, changed my business model and concentrate on, getting a lot of knowledge out there and teaching people about horses, get them comfortable around horses. And, the knowledge is a big thing just so, we don't have, I've done a lot of equine rescue just so we don't have, more rescues out in the world. So I just really try and instill, how to care for them and, just to, and to enjoy them. It's, I don't know.
So let's talk a little bit, because this horse deal wasn't in play when you were in Las Vegas, right?
No.
So your love of horses and your interaction with horses really kind of started when you moved here to Texas.
Yeah, so I've always loved horses. I think every little girl loves horses, and I've always wanted to ride horses. Since my parents were divorced when I was young, I never got a chance to go take horseback riding lessons. That's definitely something that was like on my to-do list during that time. So it just wasn't an opportunity. Yeah. I finally did get that opportunity, with my ex-husband. He grew up riding horses and he did some training. And so I rode my first horse about 15 years ago. So, yeah.
A little later in life than the girl's dream of having a horse and riding a horse and doing all that.
It's definitely just never too late. And I just went head into it. I mean, I was riding and training just like every single day. Yeah. And, from the time I got up till the time I went to bed, and riding horses I probably shouldn't have been riding, and that I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So, but I've definitely learned a lot during those years, and I've just really been able to. I don't know. It's like I've always done it.
Yeah. Well, it's something you're passionate about, and you're passionate on it on a bunch of levels, because not only are you passionate on the side of just taking care of horses, horse health, things along those lines that kind of are things that go along with, as you're riding a horse and you have a place now that you're stabling horses and everything. Now all of a sudden you have to learn a lot more about it. It ain't just about, hey, here's some food, here's some water, and here's a little brush, and they're good to go. I mean, there's a lot more work that's entitled into having a horse. But then on the backside of all of that, your passion also then becomes bringing other people into that experience that you knew you wanted to do, hadn't had an opportunity to do up until you came to Texas. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I know what this did for me. And what it's done, I'm assuming, we were talking a little bit in pre-show where we were talking about, I was telling you, I know some folks who, equine is a part of, or I really should say equestrian is a part of what they do. They have a place that they go to and their daughter rides. But it really is kind of almost therapeutic to the sense of, it's easy to have all of these things going on in your world. But then when you're out there, you have a horse in front of you, really your focus and attention of all the outside distractions and stuff really narrows down, and your focus really becomes about you and the animal in front of you. And so I kind of would expect like people who are doing it, whether they've done it before and they come to you and they're maybe got a little bit of experience to it, or probably even more so if they've never done it and they're coming to you and trusting you for the first time, this opportunity to be able to, let me not only use the knowledge that I have that I've built up over time of being able to raise horses, because you were really at that time, you were full blown into training, breaking horses, getting them prepped. I mean, you're doing all of that. It wasn't so much for you at the point in the beginning, it wasn't much about bringing people into the experience as much as it was about you and the animals, and really doing more horse preparation training for other people who were maybe stabling them with you and things like that.
Yeah, well, people would bring horses from all over. Believe it or not, there's not many people out there that start horses. It's a dangerous thing. So, usually they get to a certain age and they go, I'm not going to do that anymore. We're going to work on those finished horses, So then you've got a bunch of young kids that'll do it. But, it really takes a lot. These horses are not motorcycles. They're not something that you turn the key and you just go.
Yeah.
They have emotions. They have, that's something that, someone might not consider is like, we need to see where this horse is mentally.
Right.
We need to look at their body behavior, their ears, their tail. Are they swishing their tail? Are their ears back? Are they stomping? Are they neighing? Are they fidgety? And then we need to look into are they in pain? If you get on a horse and you start riding and you didn't check their hooves and something's wrong, it's no surprise that you end up on the ground.
Yeah.
So, I try and, teach that to students now is, you really need to pay attention to your horse and really have that connection and that partnership.
Yeah. And so most people who are working with domesticated animals, I don't think it's rocket science to figure out how many people teach their kids or whatever, don't just run up to a dog and start petting them, right? Like, there's this interaction that takes place and you kind of extend your hand, I guess, for them to be able to tell what your intentions are and all of that other stuff. So to hear you talking about the same deal of a horse, in my head, again, I was telling you how much horse experience I got, which is pretty close to zero, close enough to zero that I can probably round down to zero. The idea of there's this enamored kind of lifestyle built around what you see on TV and people who have horses. Even if you see people interacting with horses in daily life, you have this idea, if I saw a horse come up to a fence in my head for whatever reason, in my head, I'm going, I could just walk up and pet that thing right on the nose, man, and it's going to love me forever, right? And not the idea of what you're discussing. There's all these underlying things going on with a horse that's a lot more layered than even a domesticated dog or a cat or something along those lines, where people are probably not, if they don't have equine experience, they haven't grown up around horses, they've never ridden a horse before or whatever, they just assume that horses in most cases are going to be docile. You're just going to be able to walk up, pet them on there, they're going to be awesome. The first time that I went to the stable where my friend's daughter rides, again, it was the same deal. Like, there's a horse right there. And I'm like, put my hand out there and everything. And then the lady behind me is like, watch out because he might bite you. And I'm like, I don't think of the concept of a horse biting my hand, right? But again, you watch people interact with horses and you don't see, in most cases, that side of it. Most people who are interacting with horses have, again, like you said, built a relationship with that horse. That horse knows who they are, and they've got the skill set to understand like what status this horse is currently in. Horses, I'm guessing from what you're describing, can be finicky. They can definitely have a bad day and let you know that they've had a bad day and everything else. So as you bring in Stark Farms to the picture, and you're now, because in the beginning you were doing it more so for preparation purposes for people who were bringing you horses, and then you're turning that horse back over to them.
Yes.
So that the horse has been trained. You get this opportunity to kind of walk that client through, okay, here's what your horse has done. Here's what we've learned. Here's how I'm teaching them. And then here's your ongoing piece, because it's not like, okay, once Jennifer gets hold of it, that horse is good to go for the rest of its time. I mean, it's like, here's maintenance, almost like having a car, I guess, like here's maintenance, here's things that you need to be aware of, here's things that this horse will respond to positively, here's things that are negatives that you want to make sure of. So really it's like an all-around training purpose for getting this horse prepared for the client that's bringing them to you for your services. Now, Stark Farms today looks a little bit different than that. So that's kind of where you started at, and that's really kind of where your base knowledge, I guess, about those things that you were just discussing about the physical things about a horse and things that you can see and signs that they're actively giving you to let you know, are they in good shape that day? Or are they in duress, or distress? I'm using the wrong word there. To get an opportunity to be able to read those signs and then be able to react to them appropriately based on maybe what that horse needs from the person that's standing in front of them at that moment, or maybe what that horse doesn't want from that person standing in front of them. So today, Stark Farms has turned into more of an experience-based process for people who come to you. You've moved away. Are you no longer training horses? Like, you kind of moved, I know we were talking in pre-show about that. I mean,
yeah, so hopefully I won't be training horses anymore.
Yeah.
I'm never going to say never, but ideally I would like to just do the lessons, our classes that we offer. It's more of what feeds me,
Yeah.
it feeds, not my pocketbook, but my soul,
Yeah.
I just love passing on the knowledge that I've learned. Like I said, it's never too late to learn. I've had kids come to me, they're 20 years old, and, I've never ridden a horse. Is it too late? And I'm like, not even close. You're still a baby. So, and if that's something they want to do for their life, it's absolutely possible. And I'd love to give them that, start, that good foundation. So, if they want to do something and they want to go work on a ranch, or if they want to, I actually did work with a college kid this past year, and that's kind of what he wanted to do. He wanted to learn how to do ranch work and cutting and things like that. And so he came to me for beginner horsemanship because he wanted to know how to saddle his own horse. He wanted to know how to groom. He wanted to know how to, walk, trot, lope, He was a beginner. So, he had been on horses, but he had never had proper training. So, I actually did teach him this past year, and he was doing quite well. And then I recommended that he continue on with David Neeson. And he does, cows and things like that. So I believe he's still over there with him. But, it was a good foundation for him
Sure.
to start and get comfortable and confident so he could go and continue what he wanted to do.
So in the process now, you were talking about, I kind of moved away from this and I've moved into this role of what I want to see Stark Farms become. And you talk about that feeding your soul more, like, is that more so because there's instant feedback from the person that you're with? Like you get to almost recognize it virtually immediately. Like when that person's there and they either make the connection with the horse, or in a lot of cases, we're talking about somebody that we both mutually know that had a fear of horses, like coming in, and you get this opportunity to remove that fear from them by, I was telling you, I've ridden a horse one time, I was telling you, and I think I was 6 years old or whatever, and I got bucked from the horse. Not by the horse's fault, but I got bucked from the horse, and that was it. I was done after that point. And what's amazing is that 49 today, I can still remember that experience from 6. It didn't traumatize me. I don't hate horses or anything like that, but I'm just not a big fan about getting on the back of one. So this mutual friend that we were talking about that got up on a horse for the first time and had this fear of like, oh, what's this thing going to do? And how am I going to do this? And you went like all in on this. Like it's almost like a passion of yours to remove that barrier for people who are nervous about it, or maybe it's their first time, or maybe they've had a bad experience on it. And that bad experience is like, okay, listen, you can have a bad experience doing just about anything, but if you have a good teacher, you have a good resource in front of you, that being the horse or whatever, that's been trained appropriately and everything else, and you get to mirror those up together. And then you get to see that defense kind of come down from that client. And now all of a sudden they're no longer like, they're not like gripping onto the horse worried. Now it's like you get to see them relax. You get to see the horse kind of interact in that same line. Because I'm imagining a horse with a rider on the back of it with somebody who is just freaking out, or that you can tell that the fear is really driving what's going on at that point. That horse is in tune to that. That horse can sense that. So, to be able to kind of remove that from somebody and get them to where they're just comfortable, is it not? I'd have to imagine it's almost like watching this connection like happen right in front of your eyes.
Well, it's like riding a horse for the first time, like over and over and over again. I get to experience that so many times.
Yeah.
And
vicariously through people that you're training or teaching about the horse and horse riding.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes, you've got those kids on there and they're, like you're saying, just gripping on the horse and they're scared and they're shaking and they're just like, oh, I don't know, I can't do this. And, I just slowly, just talk to them, and I walk the horse a little bit if I need to. We stop the horse, but I take it as slow as they need it, so I meet them wherever they're at. If they're comfortable and they're confident and they're good to go, then we go. But if they're not, then we slow down, we step back, and we do whatever they need. We start off with balance exercises, so they will one of the balance exercises we do is they put both hands out, and they do an airplane. And so they're riding the horse, no hands, and just, sitting there and relaxing on the horse. And sometimes they get, real scared and they put those hands down. And I tell them, I say, if you need to, put your hands down.
Right.
And then when you can, put it up again. And then after a few times, they're like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
They get so excited, and it's just great to watch. And then to see that child progress, several months down the road, and they're, trotting. Or I've got one child, she's been with me for about a year now, and she is currently she's just turned 11 years old, and she has been helping me tune one of my horses up. And she comes out once a week and takes a lesson, and she is, loping that horse around the pasture, and she's so confident and she's fearless. I love watching her ride. There's got to be something. I don't want to say a payback. That's probably not an accurate statement. It might be to an extent, but it's probably not an accurate statement. But there's a payback that you kind of get in the process of watching that evolution with your students, right? Whether it's, again, first time, even whether it's somebody that's coming, maybe they grew up riding, but, they moved to a city and you don't see horses around all over the place or whatever. And
now all of a sudden they get an opportunity to kind of come back and get reinvested back in that process again, a hobby, whatever it is it looks like for them. And you get the opportunity to, like you said, meet them where they're at. You know, maybe the comfortability level is higher because they grew up around them, but, you know.
And sometimes it's not. They've had a bad experience, or they're older now. You know, I've got one client, she's in her 50s, and she's ridden quite extensively in her life, and she's done eventing, and she's just getting back to, actually, her horse is one of the first horses, second horse I trained after I broke my back, actually.
Yeah, I mean.
And she's doing great. I mean, so she's riding this horse that's 3 years old. You know, she's in her 50s, and she's just taking it how she needs to, as slow as she needs to. And so we are currently, you know, walk trotting her horse. I go out there and I give her a lesson once a week, and then I ride the horse when she's done. And the two of them are just, you know, they're doing great together. And we've had no incidents. You know, the horse has not done anything bad. She hasn't had any issues. And her confidence is just growing. And so and like I said, she's ridden quite a lot in her years. And she's done some things I haven't done. And yet I'm getting her confidence back to where she feels comfortable again, and on a young horse. And that's a big deal.
And you said that you started students as early as
4 years old.
Yeah. And so this isn't like, you know, it's almost like it's not even confined into, well, you know, like you were saying earlier, the 20-year-old that was going, am I too old to be riding a horse? And, you know, you've got this process, this lesson that you're teaching people that really doesn't range in age. It really just ranges among physical capability. Like in some cases, it may be difficult for people who are older in age, arthritics, things like that it may be a little bit more of a process for them to be able to do it. But then also you're reconnecting people back, like this lady that you're referring to, reconnecting her back to something that's familiar with her. But again, it's kind of like anything else. If you don't do it for a long period of time, the reconnection, it's kind of like riding a bike. Like, oh yeah, I remember this is how this goes. Oh yeah, this is how this goes. But you still get the process of reconnecting them back together to get that information flowing back again of what it felt like. And then you get, I would have to imagine, outside of maybe breaking the fear line that people have, or the apprehension that they have about getting on an animal that, if you've ever stood next to a horse, they're not small. You know that they can do damage. You know that they have a capacity to be able to injure you, and which is, again, what you have to respect about the animal. But also at that same point, you also get to see the excitement, like you said, of doing it. Like, hey, I'm actually doing something maybe in some cases people I thought I'd never do, or I said I'd never do, man. Like you said, maybe they've had an incident, that's it for my horse riding career. I'm out, you know. And you talked about even your own process of getting injured, being around a horse, but then that love of the process, that love of what it is that you do being the thing that's like, okay, let's get this healed up so that I can get back to doing what I love doing. Because it really is your identity. I mean, your identity is kind of tied into this process of having these animals in your life and being able to lock them into experiences with other people who get to experience it. How many first timers would you think you have?
Oh my gosh. I mean, more than not. I'd say a lot of mine are just beginner horse riders.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you get to be the bridge that brings them from wherever they're standing over here. Didn't have the ability to do it, didn't have the money to do it, didn't have the courage to do it. I mean, whatever that is for that person. Like, if I grew up in a city my whole life, I probably never have even had the thought process of being able to ride a horse. And then you get to take this person kind of out of their element in your environment, which we'll talk about your environment here shortly, but you get to put them in your environment and give them something that they may have never even thought they'd be able to experience. And so I watch people, like I've got friends who they go on vacations or whatever, and they end up horseback riding somewhere. And people kind of go through that process of like, that would be cool. Right. But then I've also watched some of my friends post videos of them screaming the whole way down a trail or whatever while they're on there, you know, and I'm like, what is this horse thinking that you're on the back there and you're like, oh my God, you know, the whole way down the trail while everybody else is just kind of riding nice and calmly. And so your environment. So let's talk about that a little bit. So you're outside of Bryan as you're going towards Hearne. You've got a nice piece of property that's out there. How many acres you got out there?
So we have 5 acres. So it's a small facility. And it's just, I don't know, it is like my happy, peaceful place. We have, not only do we have all of our horses, but we have turkeys, we have chickens. I have 2 geese. They're my guard geese. And,
as every geese is, yeah. I don't know that I've ever been around one that's just like, hey, come pet me. Like they all want to chase me off of wherever I'm at. So
yeah, so everyone seems to like Lewis. So it's Lewis and Thelma, or Thelma and Lewis.
Nice, I get it.
Everybody always takes pictures with Lewis. I've raised him since he was a baby, and he's nice when he wants to be. But I tell everybody, like our airplane, just walk by, keep walking, and and
don't make eye contact.
don't make eye contact with the goose. But they're interesting. They're kind of funny, but so just. We have all the animals out there. Actually, we breed Old English Bulldogs, so I've got several dogs around. I usually let Zeke out. Zeke is my resident. He's out there almost every day with all the kids or whoever's come for a lesson. And, he's always wanting scratches. He never gets enough, so...
mistreated, as I say in my household, of 3 dogs that are around every single person that comes in the door, so.
Oh yeah. He'll just go from kid to kid, okay, who's next? But, so it's just, I don't know. It's just all the animals and nature and, depending on the time of year, I've got a big garden going. It's just a very nice, serene, place. And, we've got baby chicks right now, and I've got some turkeys in my incubator. And so it's just a fun place to be. So even, it's really more than, just the horses, especially when we have summer camps, and I've got my homeschool horsemanship classes we're doing right now. So I get to show them, and talk about the other animals as well. So that's a lot of fun. Usually every day at camp, can we go collect some eggs? So they go and collect some eggs at the end of camp.
Hopefully not in Lewis's pen over there or anything. No. Thelma's like, you better get away. I'll show you what's up. And I think that's interesting because part of the reason for discussing your environment is you have other things for kids to be involved and active in other than just the horse riding piece. Horse riding piece is kind of maybe at the center of all of that. But you also talked about you've got archery, you've got other things that are kind of going on out there. Like if you're doing a camp and maybe that kid comes out and goes, this just isn't it for me. Mm-hmm. If you're my kid, that could be my kid. My kid could go out there and go, I thought I wanted to ride a horse, but I don't really. But, man, I really want to go over here, and I'm going to play with this bulldog that's hanging out over here, keeps staring at me and wants me to pet it. So you get this opportunity to be able to keep a kid, really in most cases, regardless of where they stand, there's probably something there in your environment that will be stimulating and be able to garner the attention of kids that are coming onto your property, right? So,
yeah. Well, we ran into that last year, because of COVID. A lot of the summer camps were shut down.
Yeah.
So we are outdoors. So we were, a lot safer than indoors.
Sure.
And, so I actually did 5 summer camps last summer, which was the most summer camps I've ever offered. And I did that strictly because of the need. Kids needed to go to camp.
Yeah.
And so we had kids that we wouldn't have had in previous years that had contacted. I had a whole group of kids. They were from 2 different families, and they filled a whole camp. And they, had gone to other camps in town, but they said because we offered the archery and the roping and, we have horseshoes and plus the horseback riding, they decided they'd give it a shot, and those kids had a blast.
Yeah.
I mean, they really did. That was actually, I remember that camp was really enjoyable, and some of the kids were a little bit older, and they were all such good kids. We were just so lucky. I mean...
Well, listen, if you were a parent that had a kid at home, homeschooling during COVID, the last thing you wanted was to spend the summer all the way locked up with them as well. So, and you're right, most of those camps didn't go off because they weren't real sure how they were going to be able to pull those off in environments that really probably at that time, based on what everybody knew, probably weren't COVID friendly. Everybody's got a fear. So most of those camps did go off. Including sports camps. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that didn't happen for kids. And so you got this opportunity to kind of rise up and fill a gap that's there. And so when we talk about services and things that you offer at your facility out there, camps obviously being one of those. That's kind of one of the things that we talked about. And you have summer camps that are coming up this summer. Are those already booked out?
So I've already booked my first camp, which is May 31st.
Okay.
And so they're 5 days long. It's a day camp. So it's Monday through Friday, and they're 8:30 to 12:30. So it's just half a day. And like I said, our first camp has already been filled. We do have 6 camps we've decided to offer this summer, because we filled every single camp last summer, and I said, well, we need to offer more then.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and put 6 on the books this summer, and they're already starting to fill up. Normally, I have noticed a difference in trend on how soon kids are signing up. I think everybody's like, "Ooh, are we going to be able to do this? Is something going to change?" I think COVID is still on people's minds.
Sure.
A lot of times I'll have kids sign up in January for summer. And this year I didn't have any like that. All my signups have been just recent in the last, probably a couple weeks.
Right.
But like I said, I've already filled up my first camp. We've halfway filled up. I think it's my 3rd camp. But we still have, like I said, 6 total. So there's still more camps, and it's different age ranges. So we have 3 in the 4 to 11 age range, and we have 3 in the 12 to 17.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and broke it up. I used to offer just one camp that was kind of in between those ages, kind of in the middle. And we went ahead and broke them up just because we offer the same things, but of course the different ages kind of make a difference on how in depth I can go into things.
Right.
And I really enjoyed my bigger kid camps this past summer, and that's what made me want to, offer those again. I love the little kids, but it's work. It's they're a handful.
Yeah.
And so, most our kids are really, really good. And we all have a really great time. But I love the different ages that we can do. So that was nice.
And I'm assuming, is this camp where parents bring kids, come back 4 hours, pick them up?
Yeah,
or...
so they just drop them off for 4 hours. If they want to stay, they are welcome to, but most just come and drop off and leave. And then the last day on Friday is Parents' Day, so parents or grandparents or aunts or whoever can come and see what they've learned, so the kids get to show them, hey, look, I learned how to shoot a bow, or I roped this cow, or, look at me ride through this obstacle course. And
that's cool.
I can do it all by myself, because in the beginning, especially on our younger age, we're leading them around.
Yeah.
So the younger kids are so excited oh, look, I did it by myself today. That's a huge accomplishment. So.
Do you find that camps over the summer tend to lead to lessons extending out past that? Or do you find that lessons just kind of naturally occur throughout the year of just people who want that process?
So it really depends. I do get some lessons from camps because that's their first experience coming out, and they're like, "Oh, we want to continue this. What do we need to do?" And the parents are, coming at the end of camp and wanting to continue. So we definitely do get that, and then just usually just organically throughout the year we'll get lessons.
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth is absolutely huge. That is the biggest way that I think I get lessons. Social media is a huge help. Hey, my kid wants to do horseback riding. Where do I go? You know, so I usually get a lot of referrals on those. And then just, you know, people that come out and use my services are always talking about it.
Well, and again, in Bryan College Station, you're probably, most people that live in Bryan or in College Station, again, aren't thinking in terms of there's a working camp or a working, horse stable where people can go and actually the horse is provided for them. Lessons are provided for them as a part of that process. And I'm assuming there's packages like when, they can sign up. Is it as you go, or is it package deals that you kind of?
We do offer that they can pay just one lesson, so they can just try it out one lesson. So that's one of the questions I get is, well, can we just come for one lesson? Yes, you can come for just one lesson.
They want to see if it's going to stick before they invest.
Yes, they want to make sure that they enjoy it. Sometimes I'll get, I don't know if they're going to want to come to camp. Can we come for one lesson?
Yeah.
And then they'll come to camp. So I actually get that one a lot. And they come out, and of course they love it, and they come to camp. I'm like, if they come out there and they get to, groom and ride and all that stuff, I'm like, they're going to want to come back.
So then this is going to lead me into the second part, which we haven't discussed yet, which was birthday parties. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of, again, another opportunity that, I actually have had some friends who've had birthday parties at places where they can ride horses. Not very many of them. But I was telling you in pre-show coming down that, like, I didn't even know that was a thing here. Mm-hmm. Like, you got a 9-year-old daughter and you're taking your kid to Chuck E. Cheese and to all these, places that, first off, running, 6, 8, 10 kids in an area, is expensive as it is. Mm-hmm. But then also, each parent, I find every year, it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do this year? Like, yeah, we did this type of party last year. We did this theme party this year. And then you get into this point where you're like, well, man, one thing I can definitely say to my kids, I've never had an opportunity where my kid could have a birthday party and go ride a horse with her friends, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's work that's involved in that, obviously, and it's obviously this tighter window. It's not in the same camp base of I've got this whole week that I'm entertaining these kids. Mm-hmm. It's really more so like, okay, parents, y'all can set up, y'all can decorate, you can bring your food, you can do all these other things, and then when the kids are ready, then I'll be here to provide. It's kind of like a mini lesson, right? I mean, you're just not like, okay, just ride the horse, here we go. Yeah, I mean, you still have to kind of teach them this process before they hop up on there.
Safety is huge. So every time someone comes out, we go over safety. You know, this is how you walk around the horse. This is how you brush the horse. This is things to look for. If your horse is doing this, and acting nervous, then you need to step away. And I'll tell them the signs that would mean that the horse is nervous or upset or something like that. And I tell, my horses are very sweet, but look, they all have teeth and they all can kick. And I really instill that in their head because I don't care how nice my horses are. And then you never know, my horse could kick one time in its life. You just don't know, And so I'm like, they are living, breathing creatures. And so safety is huge to me. But, so they get out there, they learn how to, walk around the horse. Oh, but anyways, it's for setting up. What if they're around another horse that's not so nice?
Right.
Then they just have this false conception that, oh, well, at Stark Farms, that horse was so sweet and let me love all over it. And, sometimes a 2-year-old might walk under a horse before you can do anything. And, there's always, kids always keep you on your toes. That's
your head is on a swivel the entire time, I'm sure.
And sometimes I'm just like, just don't react. Just let the kid get through. And, it's already happened before you could do anything.
Yeah.
So, you just talk to your blue in the face and just, try and get that in there. And I'm like, look, just because this horse might not do it doesn't mean the next horse won't,
right.
And just like you were saying, you went somewhere and they were like, oh, they might bite, and they might. So I always say they have teeth and they will kick. So, I don't want to scare anybody, but I just make it, I'm very upfront about it. Like, this is a thing. This can happen. They are 1,000-pound animals in most cases. One of our guys is almost 1,200 pounds, and then our smallest guy is like 600 pounds. But guess what? 600 pounds
is still
600 pounds, So, but anyways, yeah, they have the whole, they do like a quick lesson, like you were saying. They get to groom, they learn safety. We saddle them up with a bareback pad, so nobody gets saddles on their first lesson.
Interesting.
So they all have to really work on their balance. That saddle is not keeping you on that horse. Your
Right.
balance is what is keeping you on that horse. And if you're, wiggling all over the place, you're going to cause damage to that horse, not necessarily in a walk, but
Right.
if you're trotting or doing anything else and you're unbalanced, you're going to cause issues within that horse. So we teach, the balance for you and your horse. So you stay on your horse and your horse so he doesn't end up in pain. But yeah, so they groom. We saddle them with the bareback pad. I put their bridle in their mouth, and then we, take them out. We have an obstacle course, so they get to go and interact. We have like a mailbox out there. They can, grab a ring out of it, go around the mailbox, drop it off on the cone. So they have things and goals that they have to get to. And guide their horse. One of them, they push a pole around a barrel. So it's all. And they have to be skilled to do this. They have to listen to what I'm telling them and move their hands correctly to get the horse to do what they want it to do. So, on top of that, for the birthday parties, we also paint a horse. So we have safe paints that won't hurt our horse's skin. And we finger paint our horse. We've got paintbrushes, and we usually, paint the kids' hands and put, handprints on them, and they write stuff on the horse. And some of them crack me up with the things they paint on the horses. But, so that's always just, I don't know why it's so much fun to paint a horse, but it is so much fun to paint a horse.
Again, I don't know that I can think of the last time I had somebody tell me, hey, you know what I did this weekend? I painted a horse. The first thing I think is, oh, you painted that on a canvas somewhere? Or what? Like, no. I physically painted a horse. Like, okay, all right. Something I haven't heard. Yeah. So in these birthday parties where people are coming, what kind of time do you need in order to kind of book that out? I realize that's going to be schedule based, first off, based on what you got open. But ideally, what kind of time or lead time would you like to hear from to schedule that?
So birthday parties, it would be with my schedule right now. So I would say minimum a week, just so I can make sure I have help and get it scheduled. But right now, birthday parties are usually done on Saturdays. Mm-hmm. My Saturdays are pretty booked right now. Okay. So you would probably need to schedule out probably 3 or 4 weeks out for a birthday party right now. Okay.
Well, we want to give people an opportunity that if it's something that is on their radar that they want to try, or maybe they're, again, they hear this for the first time and they're like, that'd be kind of cool that they've got kind of an idea. So really, they can reach back to you and you'll be able to tell them.
I have an app online, so I use a Pocket Suite app. And so I just give them a link and they can go check my schedule, on their own. Yeah. They can request an appointment and I can approve or deny. And, if it doesn't work for me, I can say, hey, can we do it this other time or whatever. But yeah, it's pretty simple. That way they can think about it and look at it and know what,
Yeah, what's going to work, what's not going to work, what's going to be close around the birthday, that kind of stuff. So then we get off into, I kind of asked you this, and one of them I think you'll answer pretty quickly. The other one I know you're like, I'm going to need to think about that for a little bit. So most rewarding thing about what it is that you do?
So, it's what I do. It's just seeing, being able to teach the things that I know, imparting that knowledge and just, being able to be that facility that has the horse, that gives them that opportunity to come and spend time with horses, because not everyone can have a horse in their backyard.
Sure.
So being able to have these horses that are very well trained and very sweet, and, people, it's funny, I had a client that, she went and did a clinic with a friend of hers, and she borrowed her horse, and she was like, their horses just weren't very good, And so my horses are, like I said, they're very good. They're set up for beginners. And so it's just, I think it almost gives you a sense of, oh my gosh, these are the best creatures in the world. They can be awful sometimes too. Like I said,
Can be moody.
They can be moody. They do bite. They do kick. You know, some of them had bad experiences.
Sure.
You know. So,
yeah, in the same sense that I think like a person has a bad experience on the horse, really the horse can have it the other way too.
They can have a bad experience with a person, absolutely, and then that has to be retrained. You know, I've trained a few wild Mustangs, and it's the difference sometimes is that blank canvas is so much easier to work with than a horse that has had a bad experience, you know, because you're having to retrain at that point. And that horse that came from the wild has no idea, you know, it doesn't expect anything. It doesn't, you know, it really sees you for what you show them.
Right.
So if you go in there and you're patient and you're calm, you get a good reaction.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's I don't know. I can definitely relate horses to people and people to horses. I mean, we're emotion wise, we're really not that different. You know, you treat me good, I'll treat you good. So if I'm nervous and I'm on that horse, they're going to be nervous. They're prey animals.
Sure.
So, you know, they're like, oh my gosh, what's out there? You know, what's going to get me? Why are you afraid?
Yeah.
You know, and you're supposed to be that confident leader. So, you know, and that's something that I, you know, instill in my students is, you know, you have to be the confident one. You know, the horses, I don't care how big they are, they think they're like this big. They really do. Yeah. I'm like, I think they think they're the size of their head. I think they forget that they have that huge.
I forgot I have this whole body attached to me.
I think so. That's how I see horses is, you know, he can be 1,200 pounds, but he thinks he's this big, you know. Sparkles. I'm speaking of Sparkles. I have a horse named Sparkles.
It's a good name. It's a good name for a horse. I like it.
So
in the process of, you know, I was sitting there in pre-show, we were talking about, I could see rewarding being able to make the connection for people to animal and backwards the other direction too. Being able to vicariously kind of every time you see this breakthrough, you know, that it's like, this is what it's all about right here. Being able to take somebody's guard down and being able to go, listen, your fears and all this other stuff, while we legitimately want you to have concern for the animal, concern for yourself and everything else. A lot of those fears dissolve in the process, right? Like once they're up on there, they've kind of played this monster in the closet about, you know, well, I had a friend, I had a family member, or myself got injured, you know, on a horse one time. And while that's a very real possibility, and it does happen in that industry as well too, the idea of being able to help them overcome that and develop the confidence, like you said, to be a rider on that horse that leads the horse, and then the horse kind of makes the connection back. Now the other question, which is, you know, we talked about the most rewarding, and then the question is, what's the most difficult part about what it is that you do?
So I think it's just, I don't know, difficult. I don't think there's anything difficult about what I do. I do love what I do. I'd say what used to be the most difficult is when I was training horses. It was sometimes dealing with the people because they didn't, I don't know, if they didn't come out enough and they didn't continue what I was doing. So I always tell people, like, part of the training included was that for them to come out and ride and learn and see what we're doing, because when they go home, you know, they're not going to be, they have to be kept up, you know.
Be a part of the process.
They have to be a part of the process. So that was definitely a difficult part that I didn't like about the training side of it, is no matter what I do, no matter how good that horse is when it leaves, it's not guaranteed to stay that way. Yeah. You know, and, you know, that kind of comes back to, I've done some equine rescue. And so if a well-trained horse is more likely not to end up, you know, in an auction or in a kill pen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Good horses do end up there.
Sure.
But you give them a better chance.
Right.
So that was difficult. I don't know. I think nowadays, not being able to get everybody out there that wants to come out, sometimes the schedules don't match up or something like that. But I don't know. I think I've really changed things to a point that there's not anything that's too terrible or too difficult anymore.
I'm going to make the assumption by that statement that if I show up out at your place, that it's pretty much your hands-on virtually everything that's taking place out there.
Yes.
Like it's not being passed along to all these other people who are working
so even
for
if
you
I
or
have
whatever.
help, I'm out there.
Yeah.
So, and okay, so the most difficult, okay, I got it.
Oh,
The
I'll walk you
most
back into this
difficult
questions answer.
part of my job is that I can't be everywhere with every student. So
Right.
if I'm giving multiple lessons at one time and I have help and they're working with a child and I'm working with a child, I'm like, my head's on a swivel and I'm like, I'll shout across the arena, put your heels down, sit up straight,
Yeah.
and I'm catching little things that maybe my helper didn't catch.
Sure.
So, here, do it this way. You know what? It looks like you need to take your reins up a little bit more, and that'll help you gain control. You're just giving your horse, too much freedom. Or, you're really pulling on your horse too much, and you're frustrating your horse because you're kicking him and telling him to go, but you're pulling him back and telling him to stop with your hands, So it is, it really goes both ways. But
So are your helpers, are these normally people who've maybe gone through the process with you?
Yes.
Okay.
So everyone that helps me has taken lessons from me. I have one of my friends, she lives a couple streets down, and her kids have gone through the homeschool horsemanship class, and they went through last semester and they joined again this semester. And my friend Nikki has gone through the process as well, and she's like, I'm just absorbing all this knowledge, and she's had horses in the past, but
Right.
sometimes it's so long ago that, and maybe you didn't get that proper training, she had them, but they didn't really know what they were doing, and thank goodness they never got hurt.
Yeah.
And, and now she's like, I know so much now. And she comes out, she helps me with my my classes that I do. She's helped with lessons here and there. And then I've got some other friends that have helped me and come in for birthday parties and camps. And yes, so everyone I have either taught them or I've taught their children.
Yeah.
Or,
Well, I was just thinking they're an extension of you, right?
Oh,
when
absolutely.
they're
So they
out there.
know, how I do things
Right.
and why. And so it's all, what I want done. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So they get an opportunity really to reinforce that training that you had with them in that process. Like, oh, I remember when I was here, and I remember that, Jennifer's over here telling me to do this and not do this, and that kind of stuff. So again, it's almost kind of like it's another level. Like, here I brought you into this training about the horse and everything else. And now I'm giving you this opportunity to mentor somebody else in the process of maybe where you were. And I think that's probably, my guess would be they're probably more relatable. Like they can understand kind of where that kid may be or where that adult may be in the process of going, because I remember.
They were there.
Yeah.
So absolutely. And I told my friend Nikki, her daughter, she just turned 13. And she was out there the other day and she had just come with her mom to help. And I turned to her and I was like, oh, you got this. Just go. Take them out. And it just hit me like, she knows what to do.
Right.
Like, I don't even have to worry about it. She knows exactly what I would do and how to do it. And, it was just, I don't know. It was just like last week. It was one of those moments I was like, this is cool.
Yeah. Well, and there's something to be said. I mean, it's, that you've passed along the knowledge, right? A lot of owners and a lot of even just business owners just in general get this idea of, well, if I want it done right, I'll do it myself, and they kind of get into that mindset of, if I'm personally handling it, I know it's going to get done right. But then they also understand as their business grows, as things get beyond the point of time in a day for you to be able to handle stuff, that extensions of you that are little pieces of you just kind of traveling through your environment there, helping other people to be able to do what it would be if it were you standing there and your trust to be able to go, I know that I've taught this person, they know enough and their knowledge base is good enough to be able to get this person through this process without me having to go, okay, let me look every 3 seconds to make sure everything's going okay over there. Not to say that you're completely like, okay, well, that person over there, is going to need more attention than that person over there. I get that process.
Yeah.
But
I can trust them. I know that they're going to do what I would do.
Right. And they're going to have the same set of standards and everything else that you would carry. And then that way but you're still, in most cases, going to be in a visible line of sight probably to everybody that's there at the farm that's, going through the process. So COVID impact, we talked a little bit about that. We talked about last year where you got to the summer and then parents were kind of like, I want a place that my kid can land, for camp or something along those lines. In that time frame, probably specifically in the first 6-month window where really a lot of stuff was unknown. A lot of stuff was, hey, it's going to be a 2-week lockdown. I lied. It's going to be a 2-month lockdown. I lied. It's going to be a 12-month lockdown. I mean, all of these things that kind of transpired that weren't able to be seen by business owners. You offer up a solution to a lot of parents who, if being the key word, if they wanted to take an opportunity to get their kids into a camp, just to get them out of the house after they've finished 3 months of ending the school year virtually and having to be right there alongside of them and like, my kid needs to go somewhere. You give them that opportunity. But what have you seen since then in COVID basis year over year? Like, have you seen, is there an uptick happening in your business? Are you seeing, as vaccines roll into the community, that there's more interest for people to get out? Are you seeing just kind of this toe in the water deal where they're like, are you even doing anything this year?
So really last year, I'd say I had more of that where they're like, are you? And, they'll ask, what are you doing to control COVID and things like that? We're out there in the sunshine. We're getting vitamin D.
That's right, man. Killing everything as it's going out.
And like I said, we're not in a closed environment. So, in the beginning, I was like, look, we have hand sanitizer on the table if you want to use it. But I was like, other than that, we're outside. Yeah. So, and I haven't had any incidences that have come back to my facility with COVID. So, I think we did fine. But, just getting out there but this year, I don't think anything has really been affected other than the cancellations of I have COVID or I have, not myself. I haven't had COVID myself, but,
Your client.
My client.
It's hard to get you because you're out in the sun getting all that vitamin D.
I get all that
long.
vitamin D. COVID can't get me. I haven't had a cold in 7 years. I haven't been sick. I haven't had, and I'll keep saying it. I'm not jinxing myself. I tell people all the time, I haven't had the flu. I haven't had strep. I haven't had anything.
Yeah.
But I think it's because I'm outside and, I don't know. I eat well. I drink lots of water. And so there's your secret. But sunshine,
organic,
and drink water. Yeah. That's it. That's all you need to do. And be happy. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm happy all the time. I think that's another thing.
Sure. Well, mental health is definitely something that lends to physical health as well too. So as you're moving forward, and we know that vaccines are starting to roll out. We're also here recently, you're also seeing CDC changes. Gosh, now, I mean, by the time this comes out,
I can't keep up.
I know. I mean, this will air about a month after we're recording, a month and a half after we're recording it. So, by this conversation right here, who knows what will happen in that month and a half when this releases. But you're starting to see CDC now even talking about like, okay, well, 6 foot isn't really 6 foot, it's 3 foot. And if you're vaccinated, now you can do whatever. And, all those little sanitizer pumps that you had, you really don't need those. So you're starting to see almost, I don't want to say a return to normal, but the vaccine obviously is probably the best bet to get the community back to things that they were doing before.
I think the people that were uncomfortable before are getting more comfortable. You know,
Yes.
they're like, I hear that all the time. Oh, I've gotten my first vaccine. I've
Yep.
got my second
Sure.
vaccine. And they're like so happy because they get to go to a wedding or they get to see their grandparent
Yeah.
or whatever, you know. And so, you know, I'm happy for them,
Yeah.
you know. So the people that have always been okay have always been coming and they're going to keep coming.
Yeah.
But it is the people that have been, you know, more uncomfortable and I think they are going to start coming out to businesses more for sure.
And you picked the right state to start riding horses in, because
Yeah.
Lord knows Texas is going to be at the front of all this stuff when we talk about opening things up and everything else. So you'll see this return that probably will continue. And the goal, obviously, from us as well, too, is, like I had told you, there's a lot of stuff about your farm that I didn't even realize you guys did. Mm-hmm. Yes, I realized you had horseback riding lessons and things like that. But then in the research of seeing things like the camps, the birthday parties and things like that, I'm like, man, there's a reason outside of just, people tend to look at, if you're a horseback rider as a hobby, and the first thing that most people don't think about, and I heard some of these with our friend who's doing the equestrian riding, the amount of money that goes into owning a horse just in general, right? Not just, people don't think about all of the stuff that goes into that, stabling them up and everything else, and food and health care and all these things that have to happen. And you, over a period of time, also have learned a lot more about your horse's health care, what things to be looking for. You're also instilling those in people who are coming for lessons for you so that they can also identify horses that are in distress, horses that are exhibiting certain behaviors that need to be addressed by a professional, things that, maybe need to be addressed behaviorally for someone who is, handling a horse and go, okay, this is not a good reaction from the horse that I would normally get. You were talking about things in the beginning, and I'm like, if I saw that on a horse, I wouldn't know what to think. The horse's ears are back, and be like, well, they're easier to scratch or something. You aren't thinking about all of those things. So a part of that training in the process of people coming to you is also teaching them about the horse's health care as well too, and so that they can identify a horse that may need a little more attention, or maybe this isn't a good time for me to hop on this horse and start riding. Like, there are some things that probably
maybe
need to be
you need to do
addressed.
some groundwork first, get their attitude to change or something like that. But, as long as it's not a pain issue, it's just a behavior issue, we can work through that, but you need to pay attention, work through that, get that horse listening so you can have a safe ride.
Right.
If your horse is acting up and just not being right, something's off about them, and you just climb on their back, well, don't be surprised when they buck. So sometimes, you need to get their attitude under control first and figure out, what's going on.
Yeah. And in an environment that you're in every day, it's a lot easier for you to identify that pretty quickly, as opposed to, again, people who are coming out doing regular lessons with you or whatever will learn that process and be able to learn what that horse is or isn't capable of doing that day. That they can either address if you've taught them the process of how to address those things, or bring it to your attention so that it can be addressed further if it has to be like through a medical professional or something like that.
Yeah.
So injuries, and this is kind of leading into that point, because this is a hobby or an interest for people that can lead to injuries. There's a lot of injuries that can tend to happen. And so this process of teaching your students what to look for and the ability for them to be able to identify a horse that may not be in the best mental health at that point that person hops on there, or even physical health, that they don't just jump into a situation that can potentially get them injured. So you try to identify those things to ensure that your injuries are kept to a minimum, but you also have a set of standards and protocols that you put in place out there for people who are jumping on a horse. You don't just sit there and say, listen, I'm going to ride you bareback and no helmets, no nothing, man. Good luck to you. Let's do this without a bridle. Let's see how good you really are. I mean, so you have a set of standards and protocols that you put into play to ensure that the people who come to you are also protected. Even though there may be some things that you can't necessarily control 100% of the time.
Yeah, we be as safe as we can be. So we provide helmets. So we're a Western facility that everyone wears a helmet. So I have all different sizes. You can bring your own, or I can provide one that I have. So that's a must. So when people come, especially since I have beginners, what I do is I take that stigmatism of a helmet away. So sometimes I'll tell the kid if they're wearing a ball cap, I'm say, hey, trade me hats. And I hand them the helmet, they give me their hat,
Yeah.
and, they go for a ride, and they don't think anything of it.
Right.
So if it's just given to you as a given, it's common in English. I don't know why in the Western world we don't wear helmets.
Right.
I started wearing one about 3 years ago. I've had a few concussions.
Yeah.
Training horses probably before I should have been. I did things that weren't safe.
Yeah.
And I ended up coming off of a horse or two. So now I know better.
Yeah.
And I teach that.
Know better, do better.
Yeah. Look, learn from my lessons, learn from my experience.
Sure.
Don't get a traumatic brain injury, and I'm very upfront and honest about those things. It's like, look, I love my horses, but y'all need to be safe.
Sure.
We want to make sure you're safe, the horse is safe. So yeah, we have safety rules that we go over. Like we don't even put the bridle on the horse until we're in the arena, and that's going to be safety of your horse. Because if your horse runs off, they've got a bit in their mouth, and you're holding them by the reins, that could hurt their mouth.
Right.
So there's just certain things that we do, like I said, for the safety of the rider, for the safety of the horse, that is like every single time this is what we do.
Well, and there's glamorizing that goes on in this process as well, too. If you think about, you were talking about a person that lives in San Antonio. We grew up in San Antonio. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I think about when I think about horses in San Antonio, it's where the rodeo's at. There's lots of horses come around for the rodeo and everything. But you can go downtown in San Antonio and they have carriage rides, mm-hmm. right? And you got a horse that's pulling a buggy, and everybody just kind of, again, looks at these things like they're docile creatures and I can walk right up to them. They're going to do what they're supposed to do. If you look at horses as they're portrayed in movies and TV shows and everything else, because you're talking about, you don't understand why people wear helmets, but what do you see again in TV and movies? Mm-hmm. You see people with cowboy hats. Yeah, cowboy hats is walking around, riding their horse off and everything else. And again, the process of learning is ensuring safety first, and then the rest of it will come behind safety, but not giving up safety to look cool or because that doesn't look cool. I mean, I can think again, my daughter riding a bike for the first time. It's common ground. Kid rides a bike for the first time, you put your helmet on, right? Mm-hmm. But then when they get to the process of comfortability, then it's like, I don't need this helmet anymore. And they're not thinking about somebody ramming into them with a car or anything along those lines. And the horse kind of is that same way. It's like, yeah, I've ridden this horse for a long time, and this horse has never done anything. That I could probably bet would be the storyline to most people who have had an injury with a horse.
A lot of times they get too comfortable.
Yeah, it's not the idea of, I got on this horse and I just didn't get along. I mean,
it's some freak thing that happens.
Right, something spooks them, something they missed.
Horse in 10 years has never done this before, but something happens and they spook and you end up on the ground because you weren't expecting it. Right. And, you've got an injury, you broke something.
And over a period of time, it's like, okay, I don't need this helmet anymore. I can go to my cowgirl hat and drop that on and everything's all good. But again, it is always about, I was telling you, like, there's this process in that the therapy part we were talking about where everything kind of just tunes out and you're really just kind of right here in the moment with a horse. Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing else that really matters. My day that I just had in my real life somewhere else has kind of like faded away because really I'm just connecting to this horse right now. And while that's a process for people who probably it becomes the passion for them. It becomes something that's of interest to them, and the idea that I can just be focused here. I tell people all the time, like one of my dumbest things that I enjoy doing therapeutic wise is cutting a yard. But I really enjoy cutting yard, even though I don't do this at my house because it ain't big enough. I really enjoy a riding lawnmower. Mm-hmm. And man, I can put headphones in and just the only thing I'm thinking about in that process is, man, am I on a straight line of cutting this grass here? Because I don't want to miss a strip that I got to go back. And it just, again, I used to, my in-laws own 5 acres outside of San Antonio, and I'd go and just hop on their riding mower and go cut their grass. And so it's the therapy of somebody. When we use the word therapy, it's not, it's not therapy in the process of medical professional therapy or whatever. It's just the idea of just disconnecting and reconnecting in a world that maybe we're just not as exposed to, or something that just gives us something to just focus right here on this little small thing, and instead of all the things that bombard us every single day.
I can say my adult clients, that's what they refer to it as. They're like, I'm making an appointment for my therapy, and they come and they come do a lesson with me.
And probably cheaper at that. So
and it is cheaper, and you get to be with a horse. So and then even one of the little kids that comes out, her grandma usually brings her, and she says she's got to get her lesson every week. She says if she gets her lesson, she has the best week. And then the opposite, if she don't get her lesson, then she doesn't have a good week, So
I could totally see that being the case.
It just makes a difference in your whole entire week. I mean, if that's all you can come out is once a week, then, that's it. That's your week right there.
Yeah. So again, our friend that does it, her daughter does it, their daughter does it regularly. Again, it's just this tuning in process to the process itself. Like everything else kind of just goes away, and just the process itself becomes what's at focus. And you don't want to find yourself in another situation. I'm imagining, as riding a horse, the last thing I'm going to do is be reaching in my pocket to grab my phone to see who's posted what on Facebook or who texts me and all that kind of stuff. You just kind of dial out of everything. And if
they have phones, I don't even have to say anything. They set them down. They don't touch them until they're done.
Yeah. It's a return to something that for people who are listening to this, who may be older than the age of 40, may have remembered when we didn't have cell phones and we used to do things, parents would send you off, don't come back in until the street lights come on and that kind of stuff. So it is something to be said about returning to something that we as older folks probably miss a lot in our life, because there's always things battling for our attention. In any given day, if you carry a cell phone in your pocket, there are always going to be things that are battling for your attention, or you have a smartwatch on your wrist, and there's all these things that are going on. And for as crazy as the world's been over the last 12 months, it's probably the furthest thing from crazy to be out in that environment where it's just you and the animal, and you just get an opportunity to just ride. You get an opportunity just to connect. So that's really, I think, and again, while I haven't ridden a horse in a very long time, and people that I know that do ride them, people who I know that have their kids involved in it and everything else, it is exactly what you describe. It is this reset almost, that it's just an opportunity to just get into nature, which again, if you live in the city, it's not like you're just going to see this horse running up and down the road or whatever. It's getting into nature. It's getting away from the things that are constantly pulling at you, and then giving people an opportunity just to connect to the nature, to the animal, and just to the process. So let's talk about, we talked about COVID and what we're seeing on the future coming. And we were talking about this in pre-show, and I told you we're going to have to spend a little time explaining this when we get to this point. So, future plans. So, as things are returning to a more normalized environment, people are more comfortable getting around folks now. We're continuing to see CDC continue to let things up and allowing people to be a little bit more free in their everyday life. Now, all of a sudden, you see things starting to return to normal in your business. What do you see on the horizon as the next things, services that you're going to offer, or things that you want to see offered out at your place that's outside of what you're doing right now?
Okay. Well, first, I do want to touch on the homeschool horsemanship classes, which is actually something that I am currently offering.
Okay.
But that's new to this year.
Okay.
So this is our second semester. Last semester was like, I'm going to try it out and see how it goes. And I absolutely fell in love with it. Like, it is my favorite thing that I'm doing right now, just because I get to impart that knowledge out there. So we get to speak on, things that it's more than just grooming, safety, and riding.
Okay.
So we are talking about, like you said earlier, caring of the horse and, seeing, this behavior or this is going on, maybe they need to see the vet. So that has been like, I look forward to that 3 days a week right now. It is my favorite class. It's 3 hours a day. And so, and then they get to ride as well. I mean, it's just, it's awesome. So that going forward, I'm going to continue offering.
Okay.
So we'll be, of course, during the summer, I won't have any of those classes because we have our camps. But I will be offering them again in the fall. Okay. So probably need to start getting my schedule out there. I've already had people asking, and I was like, I don't know yet.
So is this like an after-school deal? Is this more confined to virtual?
This one's a homeschool horsemanship.
Okay.
So they come out 3 hours a day. It's 4 kids. And so it's nice because they get, a good little group of friends and that they get to spend 8 weeks with. So it's an 8-week course.
Okay.
And they come out once a week for 3 hours a day. And so I, have a curriculum, and so they get paperwork. I give them an option at the end. They don't have to, but since it is homeschool, I'm like, if you want to write an essay, I give them some options. These are essays that you can write on it. So we'll see. We didn't have any last semester. We'll see what we get this semester. We do have some older girls. I think they might do it. So, but that's definitely something that I've found. I love teaching. So when I was younger, I loved horses, but I wanted to be a teacher. So, I feel like I've combined my love of horses and teaching, even though I'm not a certified teacher, I get to teach something that I love. So that is, like I said, been one of my favorite classes. But so the what's coming to Stark Farms in the future.
I'm going to cut you off for just a sec.
Go for it.
Because I've got to put this to the end of the podcast.
Okay.
And I've got another thing that I want to make sure we touch on, even though it's not available right now.
Okay.
We had talked about the scholarship program. And so I kind of wanted to touch base on that because this is something that, based on how this year goes, may be something that ends up happening next year as well too. So I wanted you to talk about that for a little bit for your camps and the scholarships.
So I was really excited this year. I was contacted by Brazos Extension Horse Committee, and Helen over there that runs Lost Horizons Ranch, which is a little play day. They do little horse shows and things like that. It is a great place to get started if you've never shown. So I've taken some kids there. I've shown there a few years ago. It's just a good place to get started. They've been out there for like 30 years. So Helen's got a great heart for, kids and horses and everything. So anyway, she contacted me and she said, we want to give scholarships to 10 underprivileged kids that wouldn't have an opportunity otherwise to go to camp. And so they asked, would I be that camp? And I was like, well, yeah, of course. Oh my gosh. So I thought that was just so awesome. So we already have 10 kids. They found 10 kids, and we've already picked our dates out and everything. So they are signed up. I got all their information actually yesterday. So I'm super excited about that, and I was waiting for their information so I could start looking for boots for them to try and see if I could get some boots for them, see if people would donate or whatever. And she gave me more good news. She said that Cavender's is going to donate 10 pairs of boots for these 10 kids.
Big shout out to Cavender's.
Yes. There. So it was just so awesome. I was so excited about that. So not only do they get to come to camp, which some of these kids have never been to a summer camp before.
Right.
But they get a new pair of boots. I'm like, that's just awesome. So so hopefully this is our first year, and she says we plan to do this, in the following years. So, hopefully this will be a new thing that we get to do every year now.
Yeah, it was super cool when we were talking about it in pre-show, and I wanted to make sure we got an opportunity. Not only just to thank her for the opportunity to give kids a chance to do that, but secondly, just to let people know, there's things that are also going on in the community around them that probably never will get talked about, other than those 10 kids going to their friends or going to their family. Yeah. But locally, we always have businesses and places that are stepping up and filling voids and gaps that maybe most people don't even think exist or know exist in the community, that then are able to rise up and meet a need somewhere, or even create a new program or process to allow people that, like you said, these were kids that would probably never get an opportunity to take advantage of a camp like this. And then they get to rise to the occasion to help get 10 more kids hooked in. And who knows what that does for that kid in the long term. I mean, the process of just being able for them to go and experience that, not only the fact that Cavender's, rises to the occasion to then outfit them in a new set of boots and everything else, but we wanted to make sure that we gave them kind of a shout out on here, and then gave people kind of a line of sight into what may be in the future for your farm as well too, as you continue this process. That I would imagine the feedback's going to be really critical as well, from those kids, from the family, to know, hey, this may turn from 10 to 20. There's no telling. Like, this scholarship may be something that continues forward in the process and maybe grows, and you're a part of that process. I would think you'd want to be a part of that process, just to get them into an environment that is a passion of yours, so that you can pass it along to kids who may never get an opportunity to experience that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just blessed just to be able to be part of it.
Absolutely.
So just being able to have the horses, have this program, have this camp, you know, and to be asked. So I'm just,
No, I mean, it's got to be a huge honor that you were considered for it. It's not like, we were talking before we got on here. It's not, you're not the only place, right?
Oh, no.
But the way that you set yourself apart from everybody else is, again, the experience. It's the hands-on. It's the kind of walking people into your world and getting them to connect with what it is that's your passion, that may eventually become their passion. I was talking about, there's probably not a better place to own a farm where you're teaching kids and adults and stuff about riding, than here at the home of Texas A&M, which has probably the top equestrian program in the nation. Most people don't know that. I mean, it's an amazing process to think that in our own backyard that we have an organization on campus that has won multiple national championships, is held in high regards in the world of equestrian riders and things along these lines. I'm going to be honest with you. The only reason I know about it is, again, because I have friends that have a daughter that's doing equestrian riding, and I didn't realize in my own backyard that was I knew we had one. We do things for them, obviously, here at M&M, but at the same point of the success that they've had and garnered. And then you're in an area that can potentially, if it becomes a passion for somebody, can potentially put them in a line of sight in their own backyard.
So talking about that, I've actually done internships for some of those kids at Texas
cool.
A&M. I've done internships, and then also just had them come out, and they weren't familiar enough with horses, and they needed to learn a little bit more before they started their program.
Yeah.
So I have had a chance for that as well. I've gotten to work with these young kids that do go on and become some of the best, equestrians and everything. So, like I said, I'm that beginner step, just so they feel
just plugging
comfortable,
them in.
so they can, they may have ridden before and they want to do this, but they're like, I'm not really sure what I'm doing when I'm saddling this horse. You know, I mean, everyone starts somewhere.
Sure.
You don't wake up and go, oh, I know how to ride.
Yeah.
So they have the desire. They want to do it. They want to do this program, but they're like, I need more knowledge, because maybe they don't want to look dumb, so they want to learn a little bit, with me privately.
Sure. And
then they move on. So yeah, that's something I've done for several years now with Texas A&M. So.
All right, we're moving into this last process for future plans. So I'll let you tell the audience about this future plan that you got. So.
Okay. So, where do I even start? So, okay. So, we'll just go back to talking about injuries. Mm-hmm. So. It'll be 2 years this August. I broke my back. I was training a 2-year-old stallion, and it was just really bad luck. He liked to jump up in the air and buck, and which isn't the best. He hadn't bucked in like a month, and I had a saddle on him, and I was on him with the bit, and he just wasn't acting right. And I said, you know what? I'm going to step down. We're just going to ride bareback today. And I went and threw my leg over to get off, and he jumped up and he bucked like he did. And I ended up breaking my back. So that kind of changed my business for a little bit. I couldn't work for several months. I had to rely on friends to take care of me. I couldn't feed my dogs. I couldn't feed my horses. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And, it's just one of those things, that can happen. They are their own animals. And, as safe as you are sometimes, stuff just happens. But starting a horse is dangerous in itself. So it is a risk no matter what. I think if I was still in the saddle, I would have been fine. But the fact that I was stepping out of the saddle, he caught me just right at the right time.
Yeah.
I did have a helmet on, so kudos to my helmet. I did not get a concussion that day.
There you go.
So,
I was fully aware that I had broken my back.
I did know something was broken. I wasn't sure what, but I knew something was broken. So anyways, doing that, having that injury and having to, rehab and kind of get back to my daily life. And I was like, well, I probably shouldn't be riding right now. So I rode a little bit my personal horses, as soon as I could, probably sooner than I should have, things like that. But, of course you have that trust in your own horses.
Sure.
But I said, I need to, logically, I'm not afraid of riding. I love riding. So it wasn't that. But logically, I'm like, if I want to continue doing this, I need to change something. And so I said, I need to do more lessons, less training, and, go from there. And so, I started advertising more lessons and turning horses down. And I'd say it's actually helped my business by switching and doing that, because training took up so much of my time. So, I get to interact with way more people, teach way more kids about, horses than the one horse that I'm teaching and the one owner, So, right. I can only train so many horses in a year. So I feel like I'm reaching more people now. And just thinking about still being in quite a lot of pain. I broke my T8, which affects my arms. So you can imagine riding sometimes could be painful. But I have a wonderful chiropractor. I'm going to shout out to Megan Speck with Blessed Hands Chiropractic. She is the reason that I can feel my arms. Absolutely. She's amazing. I actually met her. She chiropracted my dog.
Interesting.
Yes. So she does dogs, horses, and people.
Hey, Jennifer, I got a 2-for-1 special going on.
Hey, she's been to my house and done all three. So she's absolutely wonderful. So her adjusting me, and then yoga has actually always been a passion of mine, and I've never stuck with it. I'm like, I did it here and there, and I was like, yeah, I really like that, and maybe I'd like to get certified in it, and it just never happened. I never stuck with it. But I always enjoyed it. Has good, physical and mental benefits. It's just the most relaxing and energizing thing I think I do every single morning when I wake up. It's the first thing I do. But so I finally decided, I actually wrote down goals this year.
Okay.
I've never been one to write down goals. I did one personal goal. I'm going to learn how to play guitar. And I want to do horse yoga.
Okay. We're again in pre-show when you were telling me this, I'm like, you're going to have to explain what a horse yoga is. So, and then we were talking about, so the first thing that you referenced in horse yoga was goat yoga.
I said it's not like goat yoga.
Yeah. I mean, you referenced that, and for people who are listening on the show, I mean, I believe it. I don't do yoga, but I've heard of goat yoga.
Yes.
And I've even heard of hot goat yoga. And so, yeah, I don't know why I've heard of hot goat yoga. I don't know why that's a thing.
Does not sound good at all.
Yeah, nothing like a sweaty goat. Yeah. Anyway, so explain to people what this process of horse yoga is.
Okay, so you do yoga poses on and next to your horse. So it's just another way to connect with your horse. So, I've decided I don't have to ride. Like, I do love my horses, and spending time with them and grooming them and doing yoga on them just sounds like awesome, I don't know. I guess to other people that might be strange, but I'm like, that's the best thing in the world. If I can do yoga, because I love yoga. I've been consistently doing yoga every day for the past 4 months.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, I feel better today than before I broke my back. So I'm like, it has helped me so much. Just like I said, it gives you just this peace, this calm. It's more than just the exercising. You just have an appreciation for things, and I don't know. So the horse yoga was just, it's funny because it's something that I've thought about in the past, and it was just like I said with the regular yoga.
Right.
I want to do it, but it never happened. I never wrote down my goals, and so I finally wrote down some goals. A couple months ago, I paid for a course. I've started on the way to earn my 200-hour teacher training certificate. When I get that finished, so I'm doing it, it's all online right now, and then I've decided I'm also going to do some training in town as well, just kind of putting it on top of what I'm learning online, because I think you really need both.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the curriculum and stuff, I think, isn't really going to make a difference. So that stuff, and then like I said, combining it with extra hours in person, I think is going to be a good combination for that. But yeah, it's I don't know, I can't say that is something I really thought, I'm going to do horse yoga, but when I finally got all the pieces together, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do horse yoga. Like, this is going to be awesome.
I just envision you like you're writing down your goals, and you started a goal and went horse, and then you're like, oh, something on the stove. Let me go get that. And then you come back and you go, okay, yoga. You're like, oh, horse yoga.
Horse yoga.
Yeah.
Well, and there's really not too many people out there that even teach horse yoga. So is what I'm finding.
Again,
there's one in Florida.
You found today that Lowell doesn't know it. I've never even heard of it. So.
And then there's another one. I want to say it's in Costa Rica. So that's the one I was like, I'm going to Costa Rica to learn horse yoga.
A reason to go.
Well, that's one of my personal goals, is to go on vacation. So what did I do? I combined it with a business goal.
That's a good plan.
And we're going to make it happen. So maybe next year, we'll see. We might be going to Costa Rica. So we'll see how this year goes with my business, and, get the teachable part done. And, I'll teach some regular yoga classes and practice. And I'll do some goat yoga. I've already talked to Luella, my friend Luella. She has a goat soap and goat lotion.
Now, these are things I've heard of. So you're not throwing me off by putting this out there. I've heard.
So
of
I've
these
already
things.
spoke with her. I said, let me get my certification. I said, we're going to do some goat yoga.
Okay.
So no, that's not my end goal. That's just for fun. But
Lewis and Thelma are over there like, hey, what about us, man? When do we get in on this action here?
Oh, that would be the most awful thing ever.
You're like, the goal is to balance the geese on your back.
The turkeys, though, they are super docile.
Oh.
I mean, we might be able to do something new and do some turkey yoga.
Yoga is like, it's quiet, it's definitely challenging. Listen, if you've never done a yoga class, I mean, most people kind of look at yoga and if they've never done it before, they look at it in this process like, yeah, it's just a bunch of stretching exercises and stuff like that. But like, there is legitimately stuff that you are doing with your body that is exhausting.
Yeah.
Right. And so and then there's all these variations that have been happening off of it and everything else, from hot yoga to goat yoga and all these other things that are variations that are happening with it. And so as soon as you said that in pre-show, I was like, oh, you're going to have to talk about this, because horse yoga again. I mean, I get it. You got a horse there, you got yoga going on. Now, I don't get all of it, because there's definitely going to be some yoga poses that are not going to be able to happen on the back end of a horse. But your horse just be there hanging out with you. That's kind of how we're talking about this as well too. Like for some of those poses.
And I have the perfect horses. I mean, they will just stand there. They're like, oh, we don't have to do anything? Okay, that's great. And we'll just stand there. So
this is where I'd love to have like a mind reader for a horse. Like, you're over there posing next to this horse. This horse is like,
they have animal communicators out there. I mean,
yeah. That's probably a whole other thing, horse psychics or something like that, so.
The horses, though, they really enjoy spending time with you just as much as you enjoy spending time with them.
Sure.
As long as, you have that mutual respect. I mean, they're getting groomed, you're spending time with them, So, I mean, really it's like a win-win. So I think I can think of one, Sparkles. I think he's going to love the horse yoga. He's who I plan to use. He's a big he's 15.3 hands high. He's a cream color Palomino. I mean, he's gorgeous. So, but he'll just stand there all day long.
15.3 hands high.
Yes.
Is that, what is this?
4 inches is a hand. Okay. So this is how you would measure your horse, and it's 4 inches per hand. So 15.3 from the hoof to the withers, which is the bump on their back.
Okay.
So that is how you measure your horse. So 15.3, he's taller than me. I'm 5'2".
So you're teaching City Boy a bunch of stuff I've never heard of. I heard 15.3 hands. I'm like, what in the world did you just say? So again, somebody else going to listen to this, them city slickers, they don't know a whole lot about hand height. Like I never knew. Like if you were telling me this, I'd figure it'd have been this way. So it's sideways.
Yeah, so sideways. Okay. Well, and then it's 4 inches. So my hand is not even as big as it should, Yeah.
So
everyone's hand is different.
Little baby hands for a guy too. So.
4 inches, but yeah.
So I'm curious to see how you're going to market this when this thing goes on. So
well, there's no horse yoga out here as far as I know.
Yeah.
So, it's
we barely have yoga. And there's a couple of hot yoga places.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you got a lot of competition in this field.
Yeah.
You're going to have to hurry this up, because as soon as this releases, somebody's going to be like, oh, horse yoga, I'm going to get that done before Jennifer gets it done.
Hey, there is room for everyone. If someone else wants to start some horse yoga, then that's great.
Another reason to be around horses even longer, right? So I just, again, I thought that was definitely something interesting to end on. I definitely thought that was one of the things when I heard it, I'd be like, did I just hear you correctly when you said that? So yeah, I knew I was going to need some explanation along with the deal. I was like, don't say any more. I'll let you explain it when we get on air for this. So if people are wanting to reach you, we need to probably talk about how they can get a hold of you, and especially if they're looking to do things like get in touch with you to schedule out, whether it's birthday parties or check for availability on camps and things like that, because your camps are filling up pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I'm not real sure where camps are going to be by the time we release this as well, too. So it's definitely something we'll want people to be able to reach back to you. So let's talk about how they can get a hold of you. So Jennifer Stark, she's out there at Stark Farms. And Stark Farms, I've got you out at 9014 Jackrabbit Lane. It's going to say Bryan, Texas, 77808, right? But you're closer to Hearn than Bryan. Like if you're running, I was like, wait, Bryan runs up 5 miles outside of Hearn? Yeah.
So we're Highway 6 between Bryan and Hearn, off 2549. So a lot of people know it as Camp Aramoon Road. Okay.
They can find Stark Farms. Your preferable spot is for them to find you on Facebook?
Facebook. They can, call me, email, any way is fine. But I'd say most people find me on Facebook. Yeah.
There's a lot of information on there about the location as well, too. Plus, you have pictures of things that go on out there at the farm as well. Oh, yeah. And they can reach you on phone, 979-422-0256.
Yes.
Email address, I didn't write that down. I had it. I know it's on your Facebook page.
It is starkstables@yahoo.com.
Okay. All right. I don't know if that's the one that's on there. Anyway, doesn't really matter. I want to make sure people had a way to be able to get a hold of you. So, again, Jennifer Stark, she's been running Stark Farms out there for a while now, and she's, again, as she's transitioning, as you can tell, I mean, initially going away from, breaking horses and training horses and doing those kind of things to now getting people linked in and getting them back into a process of learning about horses, being able to ride, with a long-term goal here of horse yoga and some other things that are going to be on the backside of this. So I'm pretty excited to see how your business is going to do as you continue to move forward. And I know for you, kind of talking about your place is a laid-back place.
Oh, yeah.
You're not looking to
We're very
be full stress and all that kind of stuff.
Relaxed,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, all about safety, but like I said, just come as you are, and we'll meet you exactly where you are.
Yeah, and again, the feedback that you've gotten from people who've gone out and seen you as well, you got a beautiful place out there, great property. It's a great place for people just to go and kind of unwind and just detach as well too from everyday life that we all go through. So I'm very grateful for you to come on the show and talk about Stark Farms and to let us into a little insight into what your passion is. And grateful that you offer an opportunity for people to, again, potentially become passionate about something that reconnects them with nature, reconnects them with animal. Horses are great animals just in general. I mean, I tell you, we were kind of talking earlier about, I'm that guy that walk up to a fence and a horse comes up to the fence and I'm right out of the gate not thinking anything about horses' emotional states or anything. Like this horse wants me to pet it.
Now you're going to be like, what are the ears doing?
I know. Yeah, you're going to make me start thinking all these things now. Like, oh, don't touch that thing. So, but again, we want to encourage people to reach back to you, give you an opportunity to kind of show them what you have going on. Now, even if it's just a visit, just to come out and kind of see the location. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they come out right out of the gate that they got to come out and commit to anything. Just, come out, let them show you around.
Yeah, I actually get that a lot. People will say, hey, we just want to come out and see your facility and, see what you're about or whatever. See if my daughter's comfortable,
Sure.
So, you run into just different personalities. We get a lot of kids that are really shy, and it's so funny because a lot of times the parents are like, they're never like that. So they really just kind of come out of their shells.
I'm pretty sure there's somebody, we'll talk off air here, but there's somebody that I know that I think that comes out and gets lessons from you. And again, kind of same deal. This little girl is pretty shy and bashful in school. Has been through a lot, but, has an opportunity where, I've seen some of the pictures and things like that. It's like in their element, right? Like finding the thing that your kid can get excited and get behind. So, and there's nothing better than that. Like I said, you're going through this process of sharing your passion with other people who then become passionate about it as well too. So, but I'm grateful that you're in the community. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to day to come spend with us and sit down and talk about Stark Farms. Encourage you guys to continue to reach back. I mean, again, this is a great way to spend a few hours just away. Skip the Chuck E. Cheese's and all that other stuff, man. Let's go out and see Jennifer out there and let Jennifer get you hooked into nature out there. And, again, there's a lot more things that you can do out there, while you're passing time. It's not just, riding the horses and things like that. Just watch out for Lewis when you go out there.
Watch out for Lewis.
Lewis will keep you in line. So guard geese going on out there. So, but we appreciate you coming out and spending time with us today to talk about it. And again, if you guys need to hit Jennifer up, best place again, Facebook's really probably the best place for them to quickly get in touch with you. I know you keep a good close eye on that as well too. So, but we appreciate you coming out today. Good luck in your business in 2021.
Thank you. And, I appreciate the opportunity of having me out here. It was good to come out.
Appreciate that. So, and we look forward to talking to you in the future as this horse yoga thing becomes a thing. Man, we might be back on air talking about a new business plan you got going on here. I used to teach kids, now I do horse yoga. So, but we appreciate you guys tuning in today and listening to us and talking about Stark Farm today. And again, we'll look forward to talking to you guys in the future. Have a great day.